Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
Yeah, it is a Tuesday, James, because we had a bank holiday in England yesterday, which was convenient because it meant we could wait until after the Crystal Palace Nottingham Forest game to record our Gameweek review pod for the week. I mean, less said about the weekend, the better. I don't envy you having to traipse across to East London and sit through that. I don't envy you on wildcard either, James.
I've had worse journeys this year than that
Yeah,
one.
you have. At least, to be honest, you can get home within the hour or so, or give or take, and it could be worse. And it was sunny, right? It was dry. There was no snow in the air, so. Compared to your trips to Burnley, I think heading over to East London was probably a little bit more comfortable, but if not more exciting. Onwards we go into Game Week 36, 3 game weeks to go now, James. I think it's that time of the season now where I really, really feel punty. I feel like I want to get as many, just have a little bit of fun at the end of the season and see how far we can get. You, however, sir, was on the old wild card. Pulled the old wild card. That's the last of your chips played.
Yeah, it's not been great, right? 46 points is obviously not what you want from a wild card, but I think very importantly, as I sit here on Tuesday morning, if I go back to Friday and make any changes, I probably wouldn't have done anything differently. So I've got no complaints with the outcome. I'm set up really good for this week. So I've got through the weekend, as it looks like at the moment, with no injuries. So no intention to make any transfer this week. I'd gone with Rodgers and Watkins in case we did have a double game week 36. More on that in a second. Returnees, Bowen, Visser, I captained Bumo, Josko Vardio's clean sheet at the weekend. The late change for me was to go Isak to Watkins. And I left it very late, like 2 minutes before deadline, but I knew I was doing it. It was just a case of wanting some Omar Mamouche information. And I know the danger when I take on someone like Isak, right? He's been brilliant for me. I've owned him for like the last 6 months. But I didn't want to be scrambling around for Watkins this week. And I knew there was a strong possibility that the Villa Tottenham game was going to get brought forward, which it has, but not to game week 36.
Yeah.
It's well, time recording was sort of 9:30 in the morning on Tuesday UK time, and everybody's reporting it's going to get brought forward to the Friday night, which would mean it would remain in game week 37. So FPL, when they told you last week, no more blanks and doubles, they were right after all, but just about.
Yeah, indeed. Good. I ended up pulling my last chip out the deck of cards and playing it as well, James. I know you don't pull chips out of decks of cards, but you know what I mean. Played it on the table. I put the assistant manager on Oliver Glasner and worked out okay with 9 points. Like there was a moment, obviously, after they scored where it was looking tidy for a 20-pointer or whatever. But I will take it. 9 points is fine. I've still got obviously 2 more weeks of assistant manager as well. I also had, as well as you, I think Isak outscored Visser by just bonus points, and Virgil van Dijk, despite conceding the goals, popping up with a goal was very, very handy for me. I captained Boomer as well. So returnees pretty much the same as you, whereas I had Isak instead of Visser, and I had Virgil van Dijk's returns as well. So yeah, it worked out well. Our midfield 4 was exactly the same after you being on wildcard. It was the fringe players around that were a little bit different. I didn't use any transfers last week. The only thing I did was add Glasner. So I've got 2 free transfers going into this week. And truth be told, I was waiting for the announcement. So I haven't really given my team the most amount of thought as it stands at the moment. But I've got double City away at Southampton, which I think is fine. I think Jared Bowen away at Manchester United is fine. The difficulties, the Newcastle players have got Chelsea, and Mo Salah and Van Dijk have got Arsenal. So you've got 4 of the top 4 playing against each other this weekend, or kind of top 4. So I do want to make a couple of moves this week. I just need to decide where I'm going. One of those moves, though, is definitely going to be Glasner. I'm not leaving him the armband on him.
Where are you going?
There's no bonus
It's
games.
the bottom three.
There's no bonus games.
That's it. It's the bottom three.
They don't count. Ipswich, Southampton, they don't count. I think I'm going to Pep, but I really don't know. I also think, like, do I need to use a transfer taking it off Glasner? Like, after Thursday night, Spurs away on Sunday, are you really going to care? Is he really then going to roll out the players again? Like, you were there for the taking yesterday. We were just too shit to do it. And I think they are better placed than us to be able to take advantage of a rotated Spurs team, even if it is at the lane. So do I need to move it off Glasner, or is it a safety kind of move to go to Pep just because that Southampton fixture is almost a banker?
See how you feel Friday, right? If we go through, then you got a different positive environment for Sunday, right?
Well, if you don't go through, you got a positive environment because you'll have a new manager bounce.
Maybe,
boom.
yeah. Well, there's protest still planned for Sunday, whatever the result is, by the way.
Right.
But I think probably the biggest one in terms of your decision here is probably if the game was to go to extra time or not. But I think if it goes to extra time, you're obviously getting mass changes.
And you're away. Yeah, I take that.
So, yeah, I can't believe how badly that's fallen. We was even looking last week at, sort of Moyes at Fulham. It's not great, but there's something to chase. Even that's gone now. It's nothing. Nothing other than the bottom three. I would honestly, I'd be quite tempted to go McKenna. Not that I think that they'll beat Brentford at all. Like, I don't. But
it's the only one that I've looked at with the bonus. Like Southampton and Leicester for me, as much as Leicester won, are non-starters. Maybe, but again, Brentford are doing all right, mate. I mean, they've won again at the weekend, didn't they? So I don't.
No, but quietly, Ipswich done well to come back from 2 down at the weekend. They are at home. They're getting a few players. They got a few players back fit at the weekend. It depends what you want to do, right? You want to chase or not?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think Brentford will smell 8th now, and I think they'll.
Yeah, I think Brentford will do it.
They're on the hunt, so I don't really like it. Either way, look, if you offered me 10 points now for the assistant manager this week and the next, like the upcoming weeks, I'll take it. So I'm looking. Pep, I'm looking more for the banker than I am for anything else, really, which does mean Pep. But yes, like you said, wait till Friday till we decide. Had the Aston Villa Tottenham game moved to the Thursday, then it would have obviously made Emery and or Ange / Mason, whichever two managers I was going to get for those two fixtures, more attractive. But it doesn't look like it's happening.
Yeah, madness. I've sympathy for anyone who's still got that chip left to have landed in this week with nothing but the promoted teams is quite remarkable.
Just finishing on my team,
I should say. And the promoted teams, same difference.
Yeah, first time this season, James. My rank has 5 figures, so
that's good.
Into the top 100k, and now I just want to keep pushing. If I can get to 50k by the end of the season with the extra assistant manager for 2 weeks, I'll be quite happy with that. And team seems fairly well set up.
I didn't even look after. I mean, last night's game didn't hurt me too bad. I obviously had no ownership in it, so I've dropped from 40k to 44k.
There or thereabouts.
Yeah, I think it was always going to be with the way I'd set my team up. The big week for me in terms of hoping to really hammer something is this coming week, game week 36.
Yeah,
a little bit less so. I mean, if the Villa Tottenham game had gone into game week 36, it was so incredibly well set for this week. And I'd have gone Watkins captain, obviously. Captain's quite awkward this coming week. Despite what I just said about Ipswich Brentford, I might go Boomer again. Salah against Arsenal was a candidate. Marmoush at Southampton's a candidate. Vissa's also a candidate at Ipswich. Ilanga at home to Leicester I'll bring off the bench this week and I'll play instead of Rodgers. Now it's confirmed single for Villa. That's even a possibility for me. At the moment, he's sitting on Boomer again.
Yeah, I really haven't decided myself. I think you shouldn't rule out Jared Bowen as well, away at Manchester United after they've got a European fixture on Thursday night.
I will
and
rule it out.
have just gone and conceded 4 goals.
I will rule it out.
Why?
Because I saw how shit you were on Sunday, mate.
Yeah, but I don't think Jared Bowen stands out as even the last 2 weeks we've been crap and he still continued to return.
I'm
So
not captain a West Ham player away from home.
nah. I don't disagree with you, but I think if you're really looking for something completely differential, he'll be well up there.
If you'd have
I,
been at home to United, yeah, absolutely. I'm not away from home.
possibility. Um, and again, if United were away on Thursday, that would make a difference as well. But they're at home at Old
Well,
Trafford
they may
on
end up
Thursday.
strolling
So
through it.
yeah, that's the thing. And they're 3-0 up. So Cunha at home to Brighton. You don't fancy that maybe as an option?
Who's that? Sorry,
Cunha?
I don't know, mate.
Oh, you don't own, did
No,
you
I've
say?
got Marmoush,
Oh,
Watkins,
sorry.
and
I thought you
Visser.
said you don't know for a second there. I was like, you don't know.
No, I don't mind
own.
Cunha, and I think I'll tell you what I would say about Cunha. Looking at obviously the deadline's late on Saturday, right? There's no Friday game, there's no 12:30 game this Saturday, so later. So there's the potential to get more Manchester City information this week. And I was considering what I would do if Marmoush wasn't in the City team. Now I could take a -4. It's an interesting one to go Marmoush to Haaland, and all I've got to do is essentially downgrade Vardiol to something like Consa 4.4. And I don't think I'd make that move. I think what I concluded was I'd probably just put Cunha in for Marmoush.
Yeah, you mentioned the H word there, Haaland, obviously pictured back in training and so on. Did he make it on the bench? I didn't even
Yeah, it
look
was
at the
unused sub
weekend.
Friday night. Yeah.
Yeah, so you think if they're going to want to use him in the cup final, they're going to want to get minutes in his legs maybe before the cup final. And this is the chance to do it. There will be those that will be thinking, right, it's worth a punt to go Erling Haaland, particularly Southampton away. You a fan? Not a fan?
Well, the other way to
I
do it, of course, which would be easier for a lot of people, is just take Salah out, right?
mm,
I'd set my team up with 5.6 million in the bank on wildcard. The reason I did that was to allow me to make a move like Elanga to Palmer in 37. That's the or Saka if I wanted instead. That's the way I've set it up. Obviously, I'm not that far away, but for most other people, maybe looking at what they saw from Liverpool at the weekend, going, okay, right, let's take Mo on here. And I could see that as we get towards the deadline at the weekend, if it looks like Haaland's going to start, yeah, maybe a few people will cut Mo and just go Haaland, because the appeal of the Southampton game straight away is obviously huge, isn't it? It's another reason why I didn't want to go De Bruyne on the wild card, and they can look at it, oh, De Bruyne's 11 points at the weekend, should have spent it there. That would completely cut me off of Haaland, wasn't it? Unless I took Marmoush out. I don't really want to do that. But actually, for me, he'd have to be the one really that would come out. I'm not taking Watkins out and I'm not taking Visser out. So it would have to be Marmoush. Not happy with him playing on the right as he did on Friday night. I think that could easily change again. What we've seen from City recently is going to change again once Haaland goes back in that team. I don't think it's set up the same way.
I think if I was to if the team was to be leaked for City, Marmoush was in, Haaland wasn't. I think I'd put it on Marmoush and be done with it.
Yeah, but I could have looked at that team Friday night and thought, oh, that's probably Marmoush through the middle with him and De Bruyne essentially again. And obviously it wasn't. He played on the right. So cold on that. Yeah, I think that probably would have been my intentions, probably Marmoush this weekend. It's wide open. It's good. It's good that there's loads of different options for captaincy this week. I might even end up just still going with Mo this weekend, subject to obviously what happens with Arsenal on Wednesday night. It might be
That's the
completely
other thing.
deflated.
When you mentioned Mo, I said so much depends on where Arsenal are. Having said that, I mean, because of the defeat against Bournemouth, they will have half an eye over their shoulder. It shouldn't really, but they may have
They
half an eye
are
over their
in
shoulder.
0% danger of not finishing top five. They're in danger of not finishing second, but they're
Yeah, yeah.
in zero danger of not finishing top five. You would need an extraordinary set of results, and ultimately Arsenal go to Southampton final day.
Well,
So there's no concern.
it's Forest would need to win two, draw one, and Arsenal lose all of theirs, and I can't see that particularly happening
It's not those stats.
for them to drop out.
You got to
And
factor
everyone
in
else has got to win as well.
Newcastle and Chelsea playing each other, Forest and Chelsea
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
each other.
yeah.
You need an extraordinary set
Yep.
of results for Arsenal not to finish top five. There's no danger of it.
No, but even not finishing second after all, the season might be a little bit
Does
of.
it matter, really?
Um,
It doesn't.
Does it
You actually,
matter?
the way this is now, you're going to get the same reward for next season, whether you finish second or fifth. I get it.
It's the
You-
psychological of like being the best team or not, or
is
what, or
it?
the
Does
way.
it matter?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does
I'm sure
because
you would prefer to do it.
people will give them pelters for not finishing second.
Are you going to get pelters for finishing 17th? If one of us
We
is going to finish
should.
17th.
We should. I looked at the table. Manchester United, Tottenham, and West Ham at the bottom. The 15th, 16th, 17th. It's like we deserve pelters. We should. We sat here at the start of the season saying we had the best summer transfer window. New manager. We should get all the pelters. Now we've changed the manager, so I guess there's some mitigation, and we've tried to fix the fact that we're rubbish. But 100%, like we should get pelters for where we are. The players, the manager, the board, all of them. Same for all of the clubs down at the bottom, apart from the ones going down, because I think that yo-yoing from Championship to Premier League now is becoming that little bit harder. But yeah, I think so. I think Arsenal will be unhappy to not finish second. It doesn't matter, you're right, but I think it psychologically does have an impact.
By the way, they probably still will finish second.
Yeah, more than likely. But I think this game against Liverpool, I don't know, maybe it'll be a draw. We'll see. Should we talk about all of the games from the weekend, James? We can see who may or may not be of interest as we get into the run-in.
Go on, Em.
Cool. Where should we start? We'll start Friday night then, shall we? Which was the home tie for Manchester City. Man City 1, Wolves 0.
Yeah, City had some shaky moments here, actually. Wolves played all right, particularly obviously the double effort that Ray and Nori had in the first half. I'm sure most owners who have him probably end up benching him and saw that double effort and was probably questioning. Less so when he had the tackle on Bernardo Silva in the second half. It's a red card for me. It's really weird. Have you seen that challenge?
I didn't see it, no.
He steps over the ball, but he steps over so far away from the ball, it's really dangerous for the opponent. I think he was quite lucky not to get sent off. Wolves have some interesting ones for the run-in. I think their final three are Brighton at home, Brentford at home, sandwiched by Palace away on the Tuesday night after Palace's cup final against Man City.
So the cup final's on the Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, the Palace game's obviously now confirmed for Palace, Wolves and City Bournemouth obviously confirmed for the Tuesday in game week 37. So you might get a very fatigued Palace. That's my point. It's kind of a better fixture for Wolves than
drunk.
Maybe it looks. Or drunk, yeah. Or you could be, or a Palace team that really wants to impress in their final home game. Yeah, you could spin that narrative either way. I get that. And you obviously won't know at deadline point on the Friday for 37. But yeah, it's a good set of fixtures. So Nori, Cunha, I think very much appeal for this period if people are looking for solutions either defensively or offensively. Strand Larsen missed out with a groin injury. We think that's not bad, and there's every chance he'll still be involved this coming week. That's how it sounds at the moment. So, but I think as we've covered plenty of times, you do go Cunha over Larsen at the moment. There's no reason to think at this moment Cunha's not going to play these remaining games unless he says something very stupid in the press, which he has done in the past. Obviously, Agbadou remains a cheap enabler if people need to find some money. A little move for Haaland this week, maybe. For City, I guess it's all about, does Haaland come back in for this fixture or not now? And what's the impact for others on that? Like, as I said, so again, they played with like Marmoush on the right, and Doku was really good on the goal. Plays left wing. He's a terrific ball carrier. My only question marks on him is always the final pass, which he does well, obviously, for De Bruyne's goal. And De Bruyne arrives brilliantly. But that basically with the two tens, so they played like De Bruyne and Gundogan, not playing with a 9 at the moment. Clearly, Haaland's not going to play as a 10. So what even is the impact if Haaland plays against Southampton in the prep for the Palace game? What even is the impact of De Bruyne this weekend?
I mean, second guessing Pep. I don't have an answer. I absolutely don't have an answer. I know I've got Guardiola, Marmoush. They played for me. Some of the others, if people have other fringe players, I don't even know if people still got Savinho kicking around, the De Bruyne, and so on. I understand that it makes it a little bit more difficult. I think if Haaland's in the team, Marmoush plays anyway in a slightly different position. I'd still play him. Guardiola, I'd still play him. Even if Haaland starts the game and let's say Marmoush is benched, I don't think Haaland will play the 90. I think 60 or 70. Marmoush comes on for 20 or 30 minutes. I'll have some of that against Southampton as well. So the Southampton have just conceded 2 against Leicester, who don't score at all. So I think I'm going to be playing my 2 City. I don't think I'm going to add Haaland. I would say I would add that this
I'm
week.
not. I'm not convinced he'll start even at the moment.
I just think they're going to want minutes in his legs, and it's a whole week of training to get
I
him.
think he'll get some
fitter
minutes
and
in his
fitter.
legs. I think that's clear now.
Yeah, but
Obviously,
60
having been a
over
sub
the,
Friday.
yeah. We're all guessing here, right? We're all guessing. With City assets, the fact that it's Southampton away, you're more than likely going to run the risk and start them and hope they play, whether it's a De Bruyne or what have you. I don't know what to do with my Wolves assets more than I don't know what to do with my City assets, James, for the upcoming week. You know, you mentioned that they're good fixtures. 8 Nori, Brighton at home, or Livramento, Chelsea at home.
8 Nori.
8 Nori at home versus Brighton, or
Just more likely to get the haul, aren't you?
Van
frankly.
Dijk with Arsenal at home.
Again, see how you feel about Arsenal after the weekend. But if you've chosen Van Dijk, I think generally he plays. You've just played him at Chelsea, so there's no reason to fear a game at Anfield, right? So I think you play him. I think 8 Nori over Livramento at the moment. The only caveat I'd say on that is I do think Newcastle Chelsea will probably be quite low scoring. I feel that with all Chelsea games at the moment. I just think I'd look at that 8 Nori v Livramento and think 8 Nori's got more probability of a massive haul in him. That's how I'd decide it at this stage of the season.
I think he's going to end up on my bench 8 Nori because I'd bust it with Van Dijk in and 8 Nori out, but I mean, Van Dijk did score at the weekend, so I just don't see him scoring. Arsenal on corners and stuff are better defensively. So
there's been a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Arsenal, the statistic on Arsenal.
I haven't seen that. Well, conceding from corners.
Yeah, obviously they concede less corners than most teams, but the stat on Monday Night Football last night was that they're conceding a goal essentially every 14 corners.
Every 14, but
that's the worst in the league.
How many corners do they give up per game though? If
No,
it's
I
one
get
per
that.
5 games,
obviously
that's
less.
the thing, right?
Yeah, but at Anfield they could easily give up 8 or 9, couldn't they?
Yeah, you could see that, and they've got people that can deliver at Anfield as well. I mean, McAllister was the assistant.
Villa are the best, and they concede a goal from a corner every 78 on average.
Oh, that's quite a big difference.
If you think about it,
it's quite a big difference.
Arsenal conceding a goal from a corner every 14. Their percentage of goals of the goals they concede from set plays is quite worrying. So there's obviously been so much focus on how strong Arsenal are offensively from corners.
You just think that they were good at the other way around, right? If you're good at knocking them in from corners, maybe you're good at knocking it away from corners. Maybe not.
No, but with that in mind, I would play Van Dijk. There you go.
Yeah, understood.
That's the point.
Yep. Good. Plus Anfield, which is a tough place to go. Cool. Let's talk about Aston Villa 1, Fulham 0. Yuri Tielemans' goal off a John McGinn assist, so all of this Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins and so on yielded nothing. Esri Konsa that I had kicking around a few weeks ago, nothing after a wild card. When didn't play him because I wildcarded him out.
When Rogers sent Watkins through 1-on-1 midway through the second half, I thought this is a good decision, James.
Yeah.
And as I said, I don't regret the decision because every chance I'll still be captaining Watkins against Tottenham in 37. So I wanted him in there. It could have ended very differently. He also missed a sitter right at the start of the second half, Watkins, who just failed to make contact from a cross. Rogers was good. Yuri Tielemans was exceptional. Again, I really enjoyed this game, actually.
He's getting better and better. He's really settled in now to that Villa team. When he first moved from Leicester, he did it. It was he was talked about move to Arsenal or whatever. And then when he did move to Villa, he was a bit in the shadows, but he did. He's now really established himself again.
I think there were questions on his temperament, actually. Like, when the going gets tough, will he show? I look at him over a whole season, go, you've been outstanding and getting better and better and can play multiple roles. He played 6, 8, 10. What a brilliant weapon. I mean, for them to, in hindsight, the fact that they got him on a free transfer is remarkable, actually. It was, I think it caught people by surprise when they got him for a free, because you was thinking, with all due respect, he'll go to one of the top teams available on a free transfer. So, yeah, he's been outstanding. Rogers continues to play and will obviously continue to play with 1 game a week now. So that Mr. Indestructible. I think Tielemans actually, he's not a terrible pickup for the rest of this season. He's the sort of one you'd associate as like a draft pick, wouldn't you? But he's ended this game in the 10 position. He's got great striking range. He looks for Watkins really quickly. He follows up the play. It's a short period. He's not someone I'd go, oh, I want to buy in fantasy and have for 10, 12 weeks. But over Villa's last 3 games, Bournemouth, Tottenham, United is pretty decent. I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't pay for him over Rodgers if you already own Rodgers. And I guess probably the thinking in terms of he was in the back of my mind was, oh, if Villa double, do I want to add that third Villa player? And would I rather do an offensive player than a defensive? And it probably would be an offensive. I think Conser would still be the one to go probably defensively, just assuredness of minutes, obviously a threat from set players. I thought Matty Cash played quite well actually on Saturday. Ian Matson played left back, so that area just feels completely worth avoiding. Nice little haul for Emi Martinez owners with a 9-pointer. Despite the fact Villa were very deserving victors, but Fulham did really well to stay in the game, particularly as they obviously finished the game with only 10 men as well, following Harrison Reed having to go off injured and they'd used all their substitution allocation. They stayed in the game and give Villa a couple of moments of fright towards the end, not huge. It's interesting Harry Wilson played in a more central role. So with Anthony Robinson back in the team, Ryan Sessegnon went back to obviously right wing. I think Fulham players are probably still interesting for this week, but that's probably it. And I think even with a Sessegnon, you put Sessegnon into the conversation with players you just mentioned, like Van Dijk, Nori. I mean, where does Sessegnon fit in that if you run as well?
Forest defenders have got Leicester. There's quite a few ahead of starting at Sessegnon.
He's obviously found the net again, correctly disallowed because obviously it hit his hand, so obviously it has to be disallowed. But then he's withdrawn pre-60 not long afterwards, and there's going to be that danger that happens again, or Wilson goes back to the right and they decide to put someone else in a 10 position, Smith Rowe, Pereira. They've got options. I definitely wouldn't be chasing a Fulham asset at this moment in time to buy new. And suddenly they're 11th. And it looks tough for them to make that 8th now. As you'd said earlier, I kind of fancy Brentford to do it now.
They still had a good season despite being 11th.
Oh, yeah. It's not a criticism, but actually I think
in that race,
whichever one of that 4, Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham, whichever one of them finishes in the bottom half, and one of them's going to, that's going to be a really disappointing finish. And with what's left, it may well be Fulham.
But it also may, look, you're talking about 51, 52, 52, 53 as the points, right? So they may well finish 11th, but only 1 point off 8th, for example. Fulham play Brentford in 37. That's big for either one of them. They've
got to beat Everton this weekend, first and foremost.
And if they forget it. Let's say they do, then, but if Brentford beat them, then again, that opens that gap up a little bit more. You'd expect Brentford to win against Ipswich this
I think
weekend,
for Fulham to finish 8th, they've probably got to take minimum 7 points from the 3 games left, I think. And it probably includes winning at Brentford has got to be done. And I think psychologically have got to beat Everton this weekend as well. They may walk into a rotated City final day. That may look a better fixture than how it looks on paper. But yeah, I think with Fulham assets, what you've got this week, you're okay with. Like, I wouldn't be like rushing to force Jimenez out, for example, but I wouldn't be adding from them, no. Villa, obviously, the appeal is not the way that people may have hoped it would be with potential double 36, because I think very clearly if Villa had doubled in 36, there would have been a massive queue and fight to go and get Ollie Watkins this week. And with Bournemouth away, that fight is obviously not there now.
Segue, James, because Everton are playing Fulham, Ipswich are playing Brentford, Everton 2, Ipswich 2, double Everton defence. Talk to me.
Yeah, but this is interesting, right? Because the only feedback I had was, have you considered going treble Everton defence? So again, I have no regrets.
On the deadline stream and stuff, was that were people
no,
thinking
even
about
before
it?
When I'd kind of discussed with a few patrons last week what I was looking at in terms of a draft sort of around about Wednesday. And it was no, are you sure you want to go double Everton defence? It was, have you thought about treble? And it's like, yeah, I've thought about it, but I haven't, completely lost my mind. I know there'll be people who've done it.
As much as I say, it wasn't a bad shout, double
and
defense.
I've set my team up to go double Everton defence this week gone, double Forest defence against Leicester this weekend, and then double Everton defence again against Southampton in 37. Can you imagine
against the 3 relegated sides, double defence each week? If you don't get any clean sheets
and at home
across 6 of them, That's FPL. That's FPL in a nutshell.
So yeah, could well be. And I have no regrets. I saw them go 2-0 up and I was like, oh, it's only going to be 6 pointers from O'Brien and Pickford this. I'm not getting a big haul here. And I was out with a little man. I saw Enciso scored and I was like, you absolute melts. And O'Brien had been booked as well. When I saw the goal back Saturday night, I went, oh, okay, fair enough. That's a bit of a worldie. I mean, he's got that in his locker, Julio Enciso, hasn't he? For them not to win the game is kind of, I mean, it doesn't matter. But very disappointing from being 2-0 up against the side already relegated to not win and be at home. Dwight McNeil, I'd mentioned him on this pod a couple of weeks ago. I just wasn't convinced he was going to even play.
Yeah, we talked about it on the Diff show maybe, and you said even though he's been back and fit for a little while, he hasn't actually been starting. So are you sure you want to do it? I was like, yeah, fair play. If he's been able to start and hasn't, I get it.
And actually, Doucouré missed out through a personal issue. And maybe if Doucouré had been available, maybe Ndiaye would have just still played in a wider role rather than playing in a kind of a more central role. And he might not have played. I mean, having now played and scored a brilliant goal, he'll stay in the team now. Again, I don't think you're chasing Everton assets for this week. But I think what I would say is I'd keep them in mind. There's a few people who obviously got free hit left still. And it's like a which week. And most of the ones I've seen probably set up to go 37. This is going to be very team dependent. So because I'm saying that doesn't mean it's for you, the listener. But a lot of the ones I've seen, I think, yeah, 37. I'd see teams like treble Newcastle. Yeah, 37 is probably going to be best for you, for example. And then if you do that, you are going to want to go some Everton against Southampton.
Yeah.
So I'd keep eyes on.
Yeah,
very
for sure.
much. Beto started again, but you've got Bruyne there. Calvert-Lewin was back on the bench at the weekend. Doucouré said missing out for personal reasons. Doesn't kind of really leave us knowing where we're at in terms of the 10 position and wide left position. And I will definitely play. There's a question mark over where. And I said, I think McNeil will come in the team now as well. I still think, despite the fact it was a 0-pointer, I think in O'Brien, I think I've picked the right defensive one who's still the most likely to bang in a goal. I know when that goal will come, it will come right in the middle at Fulham this weekend when I bench the guy. That's when it's going to be, isn't it? Obviously.
Yeah, quite possibly. Anything you saw from Ipswich to give anybody hope of? You mentioned McKenna on the arse man. I don't think I can do it, Jane. Yes, they've come back and they've scored a couple of goals.
I think if someone's sitting there and says to me, you know, I'm trying to chase down 30 points on someone with like 1 week to go, I'm doing it. I'm going McKenna. Or not 1 week to go, 3 weeks to go. I'm going McKenna. And I think if you want to chase, you may not want to, right? Because now you psychologically, now you've walked into that top 100K, you might want to consolidate that. Yeah, so it's person dependent. But if someone said to me, I want to chase, I'm going to say to people, go McKenna, chase it. The one thing with Brentford is they'll give you opportunities. And then someone like Delap up front, they're capable of scoring goals. You've seen that again at the weekend. Hutchinson's back available and in the team. That's helpful. And Sisso obviously has it in his locker to score from distance. You've got Hurst has come off the bench for Delap. He's scored. So you do have players at the top end that can score. I personally, I wouldn't have confidence in it, but that's what I would be doing.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think I'm going to have the stomach to be able to not adding any Ipswich players to my squad now.
I did think I'd probably be saying go Moyes, but it's
no
gone.
bonus.
It's gone.
Let's talk Leicester 2, Southampton 0. With Leicester, obviously a horrid season. And I don't necessarily have any ill will towards Leicester. I like the fact that they were able to win the Premier League and show that, you know, someone else can do it. I was glad for their fans to see a couple of goals and a home victory before the end of the season as some sort of consolation for what has been awful. Not since Ruud van Nistelrooy took over, since 2 days after Ruud van Nistelrooy took over, because the first day we gave them a nice little treat, didn't we, when we went up to them and they smashed us.
They came from 2-0 down to get a draw against Brighton a few days later as well. So
let's say maybe after a first week or so, it's been pretty torrid. And to get a home win between the end of the season,
they haven't scored at home since those two games.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's in early December.
Jamie Vardy gets a goal before he signs off as well. Look, the season's not done, but you know, it's nice to have something towards the end of the season. On the flip side, Southampton fans will be hugely disappointed. Like from a fantasy point
very
of
much
view,
so,
not
because
looking anywhere here, but from a
I've
footballing
been
point of
saying
view.
this for weeks that I thought Southampton would go to Leicester and win. And even more so last week with Leicester having kind of a load of players like ruled out, New, Hermanson, Pereira, Buonanotte had to miss out because concussion stuff. Decordova Reed picked up an injury as well. Mavadivu ruled out for the season, so picked up injuries recently as well as being pretty shockingly bad. So I really thought Southampton would go there and win. And actually, you look at it statistically across the game, Leicester have won this easy, mate. They've won it at canter, stroll. I think Southampton's XG was about 0.5, wasn't it? So
Yeah, 0.53.
nothing to get excited about from them. So yeah, look, for Leicester's fans, obviously it's been really difficult, yeah. For Vardy, there's the narrative there now, isn't he? He's on 199 Leicester goals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Oh, you want him to do it, didn't you? It'd be good for him to
I
get to
think,
200.
I mean, again, if when you look at 37, here's the interesting bit. If you free hit in 37, as some with the chip left will still do, and I think Everton forwards are rough, right? Because it's like which one's even going to start. So that's ruling out the players against Southampton. Leicester and Ipswich play each other. So you're like, am I really going to free hit and not attack any of the bottom three? And you do think Vardy against Ipswich, last home game, every chance he scores and it's a 9-pointer or so, isn't it? And you would take it. Are there forwards that week that scream out as that much better? I mean, Watkins would definitely go in, I think, for Tottenham at home. But you go in from a fixture perspective, you're probably worried about going, say, a Mateta versus Wolves because the cup final a few days earlier. Jackson against United.
Maybe.
Marmoush and Haaland. I mean, the thing is as well, if you go Haaland by this point on free hit 37, and I guess you will be very tempted to do so, although again, they play in the cup final a couple of days earlier. Something like Vardy is going to enable that much easier, isn't it? So he's the only Leicester one that I'd keep an eye on. I certainly wouldn't buy him, and that it's Forest away this weekend. They go there in obviously more confident mood. For Southampton, so grim. They've been better recently. The team's been settled. They picked the same 11 again, but just really, really average. And City and Arsenal last two home games there to be attacked, and obviously the Everton game is the last Everton game at Goodison Park. So you look at the final three fixtures, and the only thing I'm thinking is for them really is don't get battered in them, and you'll finish with a better goal difference than that Derby team.
What was
Because I
the
can't see
Derby
them getting
goal
anything.
difference? Remind me.
I think Southampton are about 12 better or so, I
It
think. Don't
was
quote me on that.
60. Derby was minus 69. They're laughing at the back, and these guys are 57. So yeah, 12 goals over 4 games. 3-4-0 defeats would do it, but it's unlikely, isn't it?
I
Well,
no, I think they'll be all right.
Man City
I
could do
think
it this
they'll be all right.
weekend, couldn't they? Could you imagine? Haaland
Well,
comes back.
let's not pretend it's not beyond particularly a City and Arsenal to go to Southampton and win like a 5 or 6 nil. It's not beyond them. But if you're saying to me over the course of 3 games do they lose by 12 goals, I would say no. My expectation would be they'd probably lose those 3 games by about 6 or 7.
They are the only team
Not
in
each,
Premier
by
League
the way.
history.
Not each for clarity.
They're the only Premier League team to concede 9 goals in a game twice, though, aren't they?
Yeah, but this team ain't done that.
Yeah, they're still called Southampton. Same badge on the shirts, James. Let's see.
Harsh.
Right, Arsenal 1, Bournemouth 2.
Well, this was a strange one for me because, as I said, I took the little man out, and I wasn't bothered about watching this at all. Nothing game as far as I was concerned. And I guess the Arsenal team shocked, right? Most people, oh, that is much stronger than I expected. So I got back and it was 25 minutes to go, and obviously Arsenal winning 1-0. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, might as well stick this on. And I never see Arsenal have the ball in Bournemouth's half, basically, for the next 25 minutes. But I understand that before that, they probably should have put the game
The game
away.
to bed.
with
I mean,
chances
they had
of
4
earlier.
big chances, although Bournemouth also had 3. Yeah.
That was the worst case scenario for Arsenal, was to pick a strong team and still lose. If you'd have rotated massively and you went, all right, saving the legs, and then you get beat, you go, okay. But to actually pick a team that strong may even be the team that starts in Paris in midweek. I suspect it would be 1 or 2 changes. But it could literally be that 11. So then to lose, I mean, what have you built up mentally for it? And to be in a position when you're winning at home. Like, Arsenal shouldn't be in a position where that's happening, right? And
My concern was always the one eye on something else, or the lack of drop of intensity.
You said on
Because
Friday you thought
yeah,
Bournemouth would win.
I just thought you can't play a game in the Premier League against a team like Bournemouth and not be at 100%, because they will be. And I think they've timed it to perfection in the last half hour. Bournemouth just probably turned the heat up. You can see from the kind of charts on SofaScore and stuff. Arsenal pretty dominant for the first 60 minutes, but after that, Bournemouth decided, right, let's go now. And then they, like you said, dominated for that period, scored 2 goals. And it's difficult. Like, I'm sure there will be Arsenal players that will be like, yeah, we're going to win this game, but also I don't want to get injured before Paris Saint-Germain, or do something stupid before Paris Saint-Germain. And you can't play a game of football like that against a team like Bournemouth. There are teams that you can get away with playing like that. Mine is probably one of them, but I don't think Bournemouth is. And credit to them for going on and getting the points, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some of the theory behind why obviously Semenyo didn't start was a surprise. That feels like the first time in a very, very long time that he's not been in the 11 to start. He's obviously come on. I didn't know he had that as a long throw on him. It's completely caught Arsenal off guard. Like it
Yeah.
goes over all the big heads of Arsenal's players, and obviously Hassan kind of leans back and gets this really good header on it. And then the second goal's it's a bit of a crash where they do. It's weird because they are so strong aerially and physically and stuff. They do have a real weakness with the first ball flick on, and then what happens at the back after it. It probably is handball by Evan Nilsson, but they couldn't rule it out because I think most of us could sit there and say, I think it's probably his arm, but you couldn't rule it out on a think. It's like looking at it logically, saying, yeah, that's probably what's happened. It's probably hit the underside, but you couldn't prove it, so they just couldn't rule the goal out. So look, maybe they don't get beat. Maybe it stays 1-1, and they maybe they go on and win the game again, and the narrative is different. But that's massively deflating for them. You're obviously not going to buy any Arsenal players this week with Liverpool away. I guess there will be a lot of defensive coverage out there of Arsenal. I suppose most of it's getting benched this week, is it? You would think. I've got Kivio, who's going to sit last on my bench at the moment.
If you've got a Saliba, maybe you play him because you think there's the attacking threat from a set piece there. But a Kivio or a Timber, I would bench. Saliba, I'd probably play. Probably play.
I mean,
but again,
if you've got
would
like,
you play? Let's say we did the Van Dijk versus Eight Nori. What about Saliba versus Eight Nori as an example?
Eight Nori all day long. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to Liverpool. Ultimately,
Anfield.
so
Yeah.
yeah. We know Arsenal's capability in terms of keeping clean sheets, but yeah, I think the Gabriel absence might be beginning to show a little bit. Although, as I said with Clates last week, I think Kivior actually has done probably better than what people expected. Yeah, I mean, what do you even do with someone like Saka this week? If you still own, and I know there was a lot of people obviously sold last week for the likes of Bumo, but this you wouldn't be picking Saka over the Bumo, even Bowen this week. If I owned him, I wouldn't be picking over any of Salah, Bumo, Bowen, Elanga. I'd be playing Elanga over Saka this week. If I
Wait
if I
is the answer, James. You wait. You wait and see what happens Tuesday night.
Morgan Rogers v Saka. That's
Wednesday
one
night,
people
sorry.
have both. Rogers at
It's
Bournemouth.
Bournemouth away is not an easy fixture. Saka on pens, I'd probably go Saka in that situation.
Fair.
Probably
But
go Saka.
there's a lot of scenarios where he would get benched this week, and I think most other Arsenal assets would obviously get benched this week. For Bournemouth, great result. Obviously keeps them in the hunt for top 8. Feels like the game against Villa, which is the 5:30 Saturday, could be pretty decisive for them. They go to Manchester City, obviously, the following week.
Yeah.
And I think that's enough to make me think I don't want to chase this, but they have Leicester at home 38, and I've spoken a little bit about free hitting 37 for those who've got it left, but it would definitely be a group left who would like, hang on, I want treble Arsenal at Southampton, treble Newcastle against Everton, treble Bournemouth against Leicester final day, and maybe don't own any of that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So, because I think those who do hold it for last day are definitely going to look at Bournemouth, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure.
You'd arguably want to go something like Kirkes, Kluivert / Semenyo and
Evan Nilsson
on final day. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see that. So keep them on mind. I've kind of gone cold on the idea of Andoni Iraola recently, Suj, from my team, but seeing him celebrate at the Emirates kind of give me a little visual there. I think, yeah, maybe I'm still interested. Super result for Bournemouth. Interesting, Rojo played right back He's not long returned from injury. I'm not suggesting anyone goes and punts that, but it could be one as we head to 38. Might be interesting as an alternative, but I don't know why you, if you were on free hit, I don't, or even just buy him for the 1 week, I don't know why you would pick him over Kirkez
Yeah.
under that sort of circumstance. But yeah, we'll be looking at Bournemouth again for 38. I'm pretty certain of that.
Let's go to Brentford 4, Manchester United 3 from the Sunday kickoffs, James. I mean, Brentford ended up coming away with the 3 points. They didn't make it easy for themselves in the end, on the score sheet for sure. And Ahmad coming back from injury might prick up a few people's eyes and think, oh, is there something to be had there? Because he hasn't played a lot of football, obviously. Whether or not they use him on Thursday night, possibly not. Punt for a home fixture against West Ham could be interesting. But yeah, for 4 goals for Brentford and Mbumo to just come away with only an assist is disappointing. We've had that off him before, but yeah.
You would imagine that United would like to try and get Diallo in a position to start the Europa League final. So that would be a complete no-go. Matthias de Ligt looks like he picked up obviously a hamstring injury in the build up to, I think it was Brentford's second goal at the weekend. So a little light in that area. They are going to rotate bodies. It's clear. The team at Chelsea, fascinating. There's an interesting context to this. I think we can probably just talk about it now in terms of Manchester United and Tottenham. Bearing in mind, obviously looks like they're both going to be on the Friday night before a possible final. I realise my team has not got there yet. But it's interesting because I think with the 2 teams playing Thursday and then obviously Sunday this week, particularly for Tottenham, there's no doubt that you're going to get rotation because of the long journey and then coming back. So the likes of Mickey van der Ven is obviously not going to play, for example, on Sunday. United is back-to-back home games, so that's a bit better. So I would think on this one, something like Fernandes, subject to what happens Thursday, as long as they routinely go through, which they should do, Fernandes probably plays against West Ham, I'd think.
Yep.
But with the Friday game, do you still rotate or do you still pick a strong team? Because it's 5 days from Sunday to Friday, and then obviously 5 days from Friday to potential final on the Wednesday. So if you don't play on the Friday and you've rotated on the Sunday, you potentially got players not play for like 13 days between the semi-final and the final. So I don't think it's cut and dry yet what will happen with
You're damned
United
if you
and
do.
Tottenham.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't in this situation. If you play them and someone picks up an injury or what have you, then all you will get is you should have rested them and what have you. If they come off undercooked and they lose the final because they haven't played, you'll get, well, maybe they should have had some minutes in them and what have you. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I think what will inevitably happen is what we've seen where he'll change half the team and the other half of the team will get 60 minutes and rotate it around. I think managers are getting more and more savvy with rotating players around effectively. I saw it with West Ham when we were in the Europa or the conference. Moyes used to always just change half the team at the weekend and mix up which half of the team that he was rotating around, and the other half would end up getting subbed. So I reckon they'll all get minutes over the period, just none of them will get 90 plus 90 in the 2 league games. You're not going to get 180 minutes out of anybody, but you will get your 100, 120 out of most players just to keep them fresh. That would be my take on it. That's what I see more and more managers doing. Like, look at Arsenal this weekend again, right? They've kept minutes in the players rather than completely changing it.
If you're a Bruno Fernandes owner, what do you do?
Play him. He's been rested once this season, right? And that was after the second leg of the quarterfinals, after extra time or whatever it was. I can't remind me who they played that week.
Wolves at home.
That's the only time he's been rested, and that was after extra time on a Thursday night. And the drama of the extra time.
He didn't start this one against Brentford, right?
Yeah, no, true. He didn't get any minutes, did he? I didn't.
Again, away European game. Yeah, they didn't bring him on. Although having been 4-1 down, they probably already made the decision with just sit down. Yeah, probably. I would think judge it on Friday, Saturday if you own.
He's their most important player.
Well, yeah, and ultimately, if United do end up picking quite a strong team against West Ham, there's every chance Fernandes will hurt West Ham, so you'd be reluctant to sell. But I think hit 37, and then you'll really want to look at the likes of Palmer or Saka from him. But I'd probably, without info at the moment, I'd be saying sit tight, see how you feel towards the end of the week. Obviously, there's nothing else from United you'd look at the moment.
No.
There's plenty to look at from Brentford. We've obviously spoke about Bumo and Visser a lot. Visser was the complete non-negotiable for me in terms of forwards. He was basically the first forward that I picked in terms of wild card. There's 3 or 4 previous occasions this season I've gone to buy him and something's happened and it's not happened, including him getting injured himself. I wasn't missing it this time. And he's definitely staying for me this week. There's maybe a case that I might look to move that on to something else across 37, 38, but I'm quite happy to keep him. He's been so quietly consistent and largely overlooked because Bumo obviously has done so well from a fantasy purpose. There are a number of Brentford players who can be considered here. A new name I've mentioned a little bit recently, and I think now is more interested, is Michael Schade, playing at right back. Now, for him, have just started Sunday after starting Thursday at Forest. That's now you're in this team and going to play for the rest of this season. I think he is a very offensive right back, quite an interesting one to keep an eye on. And Kevin Schade has obviously now scored twice. I considered him a little bit last week because I went Collins as well as the third Brentford, and I was always going third free Brentford. And I did toy with the idea with it. There's 2 reasons why I didn't. One was there wasn't enough other defensive players I truly actually liked to go against Collins as someone I really want to play, particularly this week. And also, you're looking at it and going, it's easy to sit here now and go, he's got 3 goals in the last 2. And you look back at his returns pre-Forest, and it's like 8, 9 blanks in a row there. But that, at the moment, is potentially a very good enabling differential for people to consider for the rest of this season. If you are looking for an enabling midfielder, I do want to jump to Haaland, he's in the team, and you need to buy a midfielder, I don't know, get from Fernandes even as an example. I've got to go to someone who's sort of in the 5 million bracket. Please consider him. I bet he returns again between now and the end of the season. The Ipswich, Fulham, Wolves, really good fixtures. Something else also really stood out for me, though, interestingly, was actually on Brentford's substitutions. So Gustavo Nunes and particularly Igor Thiago, there's been a little bit of concern how much impact they could potentially have on Visser for the end of this season in terms of minutes. I think a couple of key points. Brentford have still got a lot to play for. But also when you look at the substitutions at the weekend, both those 2 players got on and Visser stayed on. And so did Bumo. So Thiago actually came on for Mikel Damsgaard. So that makes me feel more secure about Visser as well. So if people still want to go there, I wouldn't put anybody off. I wouldn't be surprised if Visser is the highest scoring forward in the last 3 game weeks.
Yeah, I may add him to my team, James. I may add him because I've got fixtures to use now between the end of the season. Don't get to carry him into next season. And like I said at the start of the show, it's all about the punts. And he is one that within 1 game week, Ipswich this week, he could pay back that faith. So I like it as a potential move.
Brentford were much better than this result as well. Right, they've conceded obviously a couple of late goals, and they do have that in them. So for those with Collins, Fleck, and you're like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. 6 big chances to 1, like they were completely dominant. Of course, it is a heavily rotated Manchester United lineup that they played against.
Yeah,
which is why many of us captain Boomerang's great.
Yeah, I mean, on paper it was the right decision. 4 goals, it just didn't quite play out. I'm just looking here. I feel like Brentford have had a lot of 4-3s. They had a 4-3, 4-2 against Brighton. They also had a 4-2 against Newcastle, a 4-1 against Leicester, another 4-3 against Ipswich. Are they the new entertainers, James? Possibly, maybe. Even though we did establish that Kevin Keegan's entertainers never were the entertainers.
Yeah, they play a lot better football than people give them credit, and they've been trying to evolve more this season. I think this has been happening actually since the back end of last season with Damsgaard playing more of as a 10 because they've really were sort of 4-3-3 and a flatter midfield 3. They gamble a lot more now. I think that makes them a lot more vulnerable, admittedly, it's worth saying as well. But yeah, very good side going forward. I was just wanting to look, Suj, at the amount of goals they've scored. I know they're not at home this weekend. But yeah, 38 goals scored at home. So only Liverpool, Man City, and Newcastle have scored more. I mean, it's an interesting one for context here. Brentford scored 38 goals in 18 home games. There's 32 conceded, by the way, which is a lot. Just looking at teams who've conceded more at home, that's the same as West Ham, and it's only the bottom three have conceded more at home. So there's an argument for your case. But also look at them at home. They've scored 38 home goals. Nottingham Forest scored 24.
Yeah, massive difference.
Two away games though, but then on the road they still score as well. So I
Yep.
think Visser and Bumo are definitely in the conversation for captaincy this week.
Yep. Brighton won, Newcastle won, James. The Brighton special 1-1 draw.
Yeah, obviously I was watching the thriller down in East London, so didn't catch a huge amount of this. Obviously saw when I walked out the ground that Isak had scored a penalty at the end.
Saved a few people's game weeks. Or
Yeah,
helped a few people's
and
game
killed
weeks.
mine because actually, if he doesn't score, I'll probably end up on a small green. But it sounds like it was pretty quiet otherwise. Actually, I know they
Only
had
two big chances in the game.
and
And the XG, take away the penalty, in both teams would have been below 1.
yeah, so I didn't miss a thriller then.
No.
Interesting. I know that Anthony Gordon looked particularly lively when he came on. That was my biggest takeaway from what I did see of the game, and that should be a concern for Barnes and Murphy owners. I think Gordon will be back in the team for that Chelsea game. I mean, it's difficult to say whether it be for Barnes, Murphy. I think it'll probably be for Barnes because I think Eddie Howe will think I need to be prepared for, let's say Cucurella moves from left back and goes into wild positions, what Murphy's going to do with that. I think it might be that Barnes misses out for this one. I think Gordon will probably come back in. Fabian Schär needs to be assessed. Came off very late in the game with a hamstring problem. Again, that's one people might have picked up during the course of Newcastle's double in 32. Sven Botman obviously is available as well, so there's not the desperation to push it. That is a huge game on
I'm
Sunday,
quite
Newcastle
glad
Chelsea.
that Newcastle drew, to be honest with you, because it puts a lot. If Newcastle had won, then the gap was there. Maybe the intensity on that game, Newcastle Chelsea, wasn't quite there. Like, I'm sitting on triple Newcastle. It's at St James's Park. Okay, I can understand benching Livra. I'd quite like to pay Murphy. I'm definitely playing Isak because I think when they need to at St James's Park, I trust Newcastle to get the job done against Chelsea. And I think they will win. I don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, we're coming off Chelsea just beating Liverpool, but this is a Liverpool side that just won the title. Not as much going for, not as much riding on the game for them. So I can see Newcastle beating Chelsea at the weekend.
In simple terms, at this moment, and we'll talk Chelsea a bit more, in simple terms, Chelsea are currently fielding their best possible 11. We should think about that. Like if I owned Isak, he probably wouldn't be in the running for captaincy for me this week.
Yeah, he's not captainable, I don't think, but I do
He is
think Newcastle.
captainable because he's Alexander Isak, but I wouldn't be doing
Yeah,
it.
I wouldn't be doing it. I think it will be low scoring, but I think Newcastle will win 2-1 or something like that. But home advantage is playing a big part of that for me.
Couple of notes on Brighton. Obviously, very well taken goal by Yankuba Minta. I don't think you're diving into anything of theirs, considering it's Wolves away. The two away games are both good for the offensive players. So Wolves away, Tottenham away. Obviously, Liverpool at home 37. You don't quite know what Liverpool you're going to get at the moment. So I think for the offensive players, it's still fine. But obviously, João Pedro is obviously got a couple of games of suspension still to serve. So what's the impact on Welbeck towards the end? And I think the one a few gambled obviously for the blank game week was Matoma, who had scored against Brentford and West Ham, obviously as a substitute,
Off the bench, though,
and
yeah.
then wasn't involved at all at the weekend. And apparently it's a heel problem that dates back to the game at Crystal Palace in March, where he just can't shake it off. So I think if you own Matoma, you should be looking to move that on. From those last three games, there's not a lot I'd fancy there in terms of clean sheet returns. So I think you're either hiding it if you're like a Van Heck owner or a Verbruggen owner, or you're considering moving that on. Ultimately, people want to buy offensive players, surely, at this stage of the season rather than defensive players. But if you went something like a Van Heck to 8 Nori, like I can understand that sort of move at the moment. Brighton would hold no interest for me at this moment at all from a fancy perspective. They might do for final day, particularly if my team's drunk, but I don't suppose we will be. We just play drunk, by the way. Segue.
Well, segue. Two more teams, James, that couldn't rack up an XG of over one, despite playing against awful opposition for both of them. West Ham won, Tottenham won. I, I don't know. Well, we should have won this game.
I'll tell you, and I can say this a little bit as someone who's not got a lot of hair. More hair comments to come, I think. Did you see Paul O'Keefe's tweet?
No.
Paul O'Keefe absolutely nailed this on the head, right? So Paul O'Keefe tweeted during the game. He was very well connected with Tottenham, and he said, "Watching this game is like watching two bald men trying to fight over a comb."
Over a comb.
Yeah,
we should have won.
He's pointless, basically.
We should have won because
should you?
You were there for the taking.
Oh yeah, I mean from that perspective, you should have won.
I'm not saying we deserve to win. By all
means. Neither side deserved to win. Let's be clear.
You were there for the taking, and we just not capable. It was so frustrating. Like, we had a few good chances in there, like the Fulkrug header. You thought, all right, fair play. There were moments, but also on the flip side, and also the goal we gave away was pathetic from Kilman. I've really tried to be patient with Kilman this season. I know the Wolves fans were happy to get rid of him and didn't rate him, and I don't think he's as bad as they say he is. But if you said to me, would I rather have Kilman in the middle there, or Zuma, who we had for a good number of years? Like, give me Zuma all day long. And I think I've lost patience with Kilman. You know, I think I've tried to. You don't want to slam your own players. You've probably been in this situation where you're like, you know what? There's something in there. I don't want to just kick him when he's down. But I think I'm getting to the end of my patience with him, because that was pathetic to concede a goal like that. Yeah, awful. It was just rubbish. Other than Bowen, there's nothing from West Ham that you want. You can't pick anything from that Spurs team anyway, because most of it's your reserve team, really, and you've got other things to worry about. And also, some of them are rubbish. Just, I don't even know. I don't have anything positive to say about the entire game. I don't know. Kits were nice. I don't know. Sun was out.
Weather was all right.
Yeah.
Atmosphere was terrible.
Yeah, it sounded horrible. It sounded rubbish.
And it's not being critical of anybody who supports either side, because it was, do you know, it was just an afternoon out. It was like, I was saying to my dad on the way to the game, so what was you going to do? Sit home and watch Brighton against Newcastle? No, you might as well go out and watch this shit as well. Well, I'm sure there was more quality in the Brighton-Newcastle game. It was awful. The quality on display was terrible. It felt like every time, and you could arguably say this is credit to the two teams, every time there was an opportunity for like a turnover and transition, it felt like it was a foul from both teams. It was really stop-start. It was awful.
33 fouls in the game, Jason.
Yeah, it was a really, really bad game of football. Good goal from Bowen, terribly defended by us. Good finish from Oderbell after a good pass from Matisse Tell. After terrible defending, Kilman has two opportunities to clear the ball. In terms of West Ham assets, I know there's a few people will be with Areola, and listen, you're not going to do anything about that. You either play him or don't, subject to who your other goalkeeper is. But I'd probably more be looking to not play him where possible. Bowen, I think the moment has probably gone to buy him. I think like those who own should definitely not be selling. No consideration for me to sell. But I don't know if I'd be running to that when it's an away game this weekend. And I realise the Manchester United team at the moment is very difficult to call. Forest is not the sort of opponent that's going to allow you chances in behind very often.
But it's a home game.
It is a home game,
and then Ipswich away. That's why if you own, I would hold through. But just
Oh, there's no way I'm selling unless he gets injured. Yeah, look, I've got a talisman there, mate. So once I've committed to that, he's not going anywhere. But I'm just saying, I think. What a lot of people had last week was like, oh, shall I buy Bumo, Bowen or Visser? There was so much of that on my deadline stream. And it felt like the priority should be Bumo or Visser to me, even though obviously I know Bowen's obviously scored more this weekend. But I got it because with Bowen, it felt like it had to be now before Tottenham. I get that. I wouldn't be running after that this week is kind of my point. If people then feel for the last two, sure, and obviously he looks a great asset for Gameweek 38. I imagine that sort of fixture at Ipswich could well have like a decent number of goals in that fixture, but I probably wouldn't be chasing after him at the moment. There's no other West Ham player that I would remotely consider going near at the moment from a fantasy perspective. I do think, to echo what you've said a lot this season, for Aaron Wan-Bissaka played really well.
He's been decent.
He's solid as on the right
Yeah.
side for you. For Tottenham, obviously, we can now assume that there is no double game week, which only means I can give you the same answer now that I'd give you even if we did have a double. No one. Because if the Villa Tottenham game had been brought forward, I certainly would not have been buying a Tottenham player this week. Absolutely no chance. I'd rather been buying players with a single. So there is no Tottenham player at all to consider for fantasy football at the moment. James Maddison, we think, is probably going to miss the rest of the season, which is typical that every time he seems to have a decent game, he seems to then go missing for 2-3 months. This obviously is not his fault. It's a legitimate knee injury. But it's a blow, and it's a particular blow because Dejan Kulusevski is not playing well at the moment. And that's probably been and he's probably, during the course of the whole season, probably been our best player. Wouldn't even know where to start if someone asked me. Actually, I do know where to start in terms of Tottenham FPL assets. Just no.
Yeah, don't do it. It's not like there's not options elsewhere. And some of those options might be at Chelsea, James. Chelsea 3, Liverpool 1, and they racked up, I know there's a penalty in there, XG of 3.13 as well with 5 big chances, 17 shots. Cole Palmer, albeit with the penalty, breaks the hoodoo now. He's back in on the score sheet. I don't know if there's anything to read into that. He'll be an asset worth considering again. 37, you talked about him being captainable. It's just whether or not people can get to it or want to try and get to it.
He's definitely a consideration for me in game week 37, although there probably is a strong argument to say whether you want to play sort of 5.7 million more for Cole Palmer versus Enzo Fernandez is probably a different debate at the moment. Because Enzo, quietly, he just ticks over. Absolutely brilliant. And in this setup, with Romeo Lavia in the team, Enzo Fernandez is a very decent fantasy option. Very decent. And I might even do that. I wouldn't be surprised to end up buying both of those two players, Enzo Fernandez and Cole Palmer in 37. I think that's a possibility, actually. Enzo's a great one if you're looking for an enabler. One caveat that you have to think about with Chelsea, because I know there'll be a lot of eyes on all potential rotated United team in 37. There is obviously, if Chelsea do well at the weekend and then do well against Manchester United, you do have to factor in that they themselves might play a completely rotated team at Forest in 38. Because if they've got Champions League wrapped up, they've got a Conference League final 3 days after Forest.
Yeah.
So be careful overcommitting is what I'd say with them. So I think you could look now and say Cucurella, I think, would be the outstanding defensive one. I don't think people have too many money issues at the moment. Palmer and Fernandez all fine. You could very conceivably end up with a free like that in 37 if you want to commit to it. Just be aware you might end up with none of that for 38. So don't go over the top. Obviously, the result against Newcastle is going to have a bearing on that as well. So almost if they lose at Newcastle, I'm more inclined to want to commit to them more. Because what I don't really want to do in 37 is buy Palmer and then feel I've got to sell him again in 38. Although my easy out would probably be right, Palmer 37, Saka 38. But I may also take a different route and go, right, it's Enzo Fernandez and then a different player, maybe like back to a Cliver or Semenyo, for example, in 38. So I do think Enzo, should really be considered. Palmer was great, Suj. And I was quite pleased that he's
been all right in a lot of the games, though. It's just that final piece hasn't quite fallen into place.
Haircut. What is that? What's going on there? I was just going to say my missus picked it up during the game. She was like, what has he done? I was like, maybe he thinks he's cool. And then I saw it when he was standing there at the end and he was watching obviously the screen back. And I was thinking, what have you done to your hair, mate?
I have a son who is 12, turning 13, James.
He wants his hair like Cole Palmer. I'd tell him
no. But I have given, and you when you have kids of that age, you kind of get exposed to what's cool and what's not, or you try and keep your finger on the pulse. I've given up. I don't understand. Like, what's wrong with short back and sides and all that kind of stuff? I do not judge because I think I'm too old to have an opinion or to know what's cool or what's not anymore these days. Kids do all
Also,
sorts.
I'm well aware I can't talk. I ain't got no bloody hair. I'm aware, guys. You don't have to put it in the comments. If it helps him play better, though, then fine. Isn't
Yeah. I want to talk about Salah because he, in the game overall, is at 70% owned. But obviously, with live FPL, where you can see the effective ownership, he's less than 120% owned, which I think is as low as you're going to kind of get. So if there's ever a time to take it on and you're always concerned about the EO, now is the time to do it. Because I can't see him getting to that 180, 190% EOs again this season because there's so many other options.
EOs at the weekend. So Bumo, Salah, Isak were all
Marmoush.
over. And
Marmoush was over 100 as well.
So 4 players all over 100% EO at the weekend. The problem is, if you would sell Salah now and take him on, it's the same argument I keep having with you every week. He's like, where are you going? You ain't going to Palmer now for Newcastle away. Oh, that makes sense. You ain't going to Saka now this week for Liverpool away.
Bruyne.
You're not going to Fernandes. Yeah, but you need to know that he's playing.
Yeah, it's risky.
What is the Haaland impact?
It's risky.
So there's not many places to go with that money. In a weird way, there's more of a case to do it after the Arsenal game. But then I think you think, oh, it's Brighton Palace. What am I? And he's still chasing more stuff, isn't he? It's clear.
Yeah.
I think he particularly wants that assist numbers record if he can get it. And also, you have to factor in that Liverpool have obviously, but I think the particular big one at the weekend was to change the whole midfield. Quansah is not as good as Konate, it's fair to say. They missed the energy of Luis Diaz, which I think in particularly the bigger games, he brings a real energy to Liverpool. I think they missed him as well. So that was a weakened Liverpool side. There's no doubt about that. And I also think that there's actually an element of not wanting to give anything away to Chelsea because Liverpool really struggled when they played Chelsea at home earlier in the season. And Jamie Carragher highlighted it well on Monday Night Football last night about Chelsea kind of spreading Liverpool's midfield, trying to drag them out of position. I mean, Palmer on the first goal, what he does to Curtis Jones before he's even touched the ball is absurd. He just draws him. It's almost like he hits a corridor. I think it's pre-planned in his mind. He hits a corridor where he goes so far right, and then he knows there's like a trigger point. So I'm going back into the inside, and Jones is looking up. He's looking. But once he's in on the inside of him and he's carrying the ball over. Jones ends over arse over tit, and I can't look at Jones and go, "You played that badly, mate." You just got mullered by a player who's so clever in his mind, Cole Palmer, and despite criticisms of his performances recently, you don't lose what's in there with your mind, right? And Palmer is a great technician, both mentally and physically with how he plays. So I think Liverpool pick a stronger team against Arsenal. It's at Anfield, so they've got more responsibility themselves to do so. I guess it can increase the lead further at the top of the table as well, which obviously stands the same as it did before this weekend. What would they be? 18, 19 points clear or something if they win?
What, if they win at the weekend?
Yeah.
It's 15 at the moment. So
it'd be 18. I mean, that's a huge margin, isn't it? I would think Liverpool pick a stronger team at the weekend and probably beat Arsenal. So with that being said, rather than selling Salah, I get what you're saying about taking him on. I'm more likely to captain him than bin him. He's certainly still a contender for me going into this weekend, but I wouldn't be looking to add anything else Liverpool at this moment. For Chelsea, as I said, there's a few you can consider. This boy Romeo Lavia is a special talent. He is so important to them. If you look at Chelsea's games this year, when he plays and when he doesn't, it's night and day. If they keep him fit all next season, I think they'll challenge for the title. Big
bold statement, yeah, but as proven,
well, I don't think they'll keep him fit because he can't. Unfortunately,
he hasn't, so far the history is
it's not that bold, is it? Really?
No. Cool. Let's talk about the Monday Night Football, James. It could have been for the Arsenal, but it wasn't in the end. I mean, Palace were pretty dominant, even when I was watching / having it in the background. All the way through.
/ watching it in the background.
No, I had it on in the background. / I was watching / having it on in the background.
Sure, boss. Not all of us can afford TVs in our bathrooms,
in the toilets,
whatever turns you on.
You know, on the roof. I thought that Palace would still go on to win it because they did seem to be the dominant. I mean, they had 4 big chances to none for Nottingham Forest, which is not uncommon. But what I was most surprised by at the end was that Forest actually had more of the ball, which is not the way they like it. Obviously, they want to hit on the counter attack. So tactically, I think Glasner played this quite well. I mean, 20 shots for Palace in the end is a monster number.
Yeah, it's another game where Forest have had more than 50% of the ball in the last two games and not one either. I think I don't know how far back this dates, but I think it's one win in the last 15 when they've had more than 50% of the ball. You would think they'll have more of the ball against Leicester at the weekend. Caution. I'm sure that they will beat Leicester. But I think you're right. Yeah, I think there is an element of teams will be beginning to look at this with Forest and going, how are they hurting us? How have they done so? And the Forest have done great this year. And they had like the fast break in the first half, didn't they, with Elanga?
Yep.
And it's like, that's the one thing with Forest you want to just completely deny those fast transitions. Because if you do, you are nullifying them quite a bit. Right? Wood is not exactly one that's going to run in behind and cause you too much trouble. Sure, crosses coming to the box is obviously a bit of concern. But I think teams are actually willingly probably not pressing Forest in the same way, just letting them have more on it. I mean, Murillo is really good in terms of distributing as well, so you're cutting that out in terms of direct diagonals, etc. He'll be a doubt for the game at the weekend, having limped off last night. I actually think that this is a pretty good result for Forest in the context. I think they've kind of put more pressure on what happens next. But if they win on Sunday against Leicester, then they've put themselves in a really good position for what's left at the end. They kind of at minimum kind of give themselves a shootout with Chelsea, or if Chelsea win at Newcastle, they're putting themselves ahead of Newcastle. I don't think it's a bad result. I think Forest probably will have to pick up probably minimum 7 points from their last 3 games. But with Leicester being the first one and then West Ham being the second, if they can win those 2, and then the Chelsea game final day obviously might end up feeling a bit like a
that
cup
point
final.
What is needed, right? When you go into the final day, you're kind of in a little bit more control.
But we might be in a position here where it looks like they're chasing, and very quickly they'll have a lead over Chelsea or Newcastle going into final days. It's quite possible, because I think we'd all sit here and think they'll probably beat Leicester. And I would think that they'll go to West Ham and win as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would put them on 67, which is the same as what Arsenal are on at the moment. And obviously Newcastle and Chelsea are only both getting to that total if they draw with each other and then win their own games in 37. But then I think if you offered a Forest fan now and said, right, look, if you beat Chelsea final day, that's going to put you in the Champions League, they'd take it.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't rule Villa out of this race either at the moment. It's nice that it's quite tight up there at the moment. It feels like they might just miss out now, but I think that Newcastle-Chelsea game Sunday is absolutely crucial. What I would say is I think if Chelsea go to Forest final day, if Chelsea have the team that they played Liverpool, I think Chelsea would go there and win. So that's what I'm saying. I think they'll probably need 7 points.
Cool. James, that's a wrap on the games for this weekend, game week 35. Do you want to...
You're not buying any Forest players this week for Leicester at home?
I've already got Milenkovic. I just don't know. I don't know who I'm selling. This is the problem. So no.
I would, at this stage, for those who, if you are tight on money, I would strongly consider Williams over Milenkovic. That was pretty much the only change I really made, bar sort of Watkins instead of Isak. I decided to cut Milenkovic for Williams because I deemed it wasn't worth the extra money, and it would enable me better freedom to go something like Elanga to Palmer should I want to do so in 37. I think Williams is a decent little pickup for this little period if people need an enabling defender. Milenkovic is obviously still a good option. Goalkeeper's fine. Elanga is the attacking one to go and get at this moment. I say that over Wood because I think there are more choice in the forwards and the midfielder department at this moment. I think with the forwards, Visser, Watkins, Isak, Cunha, with the midfielders, I really struggled. That's why you've been running through transfers and I've wild-carded, and you and I both ended up with the same midfield forward this weekend.
Yeah.
So the difference being you've got Murphy and I've got Elanga. That's it. I didn't feel that there was enough good alternatives in the midfield area. So I think Elanga is a pretty good pickup for people this week. And Hudson-Odoi, Nuno said, is definitely going to be out of the Leicester game at least as well. There is no doubt that
Do you
Elanga
think
will start
Elanga
that
plays?
game.
Yeah.
Zero doubt. So Elanga, I think, is a good option for this week. For your Palace assets, playing Tottenham this weekend, guys. So it wouldn't
Play
be doing
him.
it would. Well, I Munoz, I guess, is dependent
Play
on
him.
what other players you've got. But generally speaking, the answer is yeah, just play them. Yeah,
Play him.
yeah.
Yeah. Good. Cool. That's a wrap on the games, James, for game week 35. Three more to go.
Oh, it is 35, isn't it? Sorry.
It's 35. Three more to go,
Cut
James.
that.
3 more to go. What do the listeners have to look forward to for the rest of the week as we build up to game week 36? You're obviously not going to Iceland this week. Finland.
No, or Norway.
Norway, whichever it is, yeah.
No, I couldn't get a ticket, unfortunately. Yeah, content this
just
week.
out of interest, how many did you get for that? How many did they give? Like 500?
404
Oh, wow.
tickets.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Clayton James show tomorrow. Clash of Correspondence Thursday is Fulham versus Everton with Lewis James and Sean Norton. That's already available for patrons now on patreon.com/Planet FPL. Ask James Friday is scheduled for 2 p.m. UK time. If you do want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. We've got our Q&A today, Tottenham tomorrow, Money in Football Thursday. We've got our Game Week 36 preview on Friday. You know why I thought Game Week 36 was what had just gone, didn't you, Suj?
Tell me.
I just can't wait for this season to be over. I don't
It's
say
done,
that.
isn't it?
I don't say that from a fantasy perspective. I
It
say that from a
is
Tottenham perspective.
done. I know exactly how you feel. Cool. Let's look at some of the questions that we've had in on the Tinternet to wrap up this episode, James. One question that's been asked by a couple of people, triple captain. If you still had it, where would you place it?
Bateta this week.
Mateta this week. Just because they're playing Spurs. Go on.
No, the one I'd always kind of thought was Marmoush would look good for this week.
Yeah.
But his positioning over the last two spooked. And obviously Haaland as well. Could be back. I mean, there's still a strong case for Watkins against my team in 37. But it might just be a case that you just go rogue on something mad in 38. Be it like a Evan Nilsson against Leicester, Bowen at Ipswich, João Pedro back against Tottenham, be owned by no one. You still go Mo for Liverpool's last home game against Palace, Isak against Everton. Probably the better ones now are in 38, particularly if you and I are sitting there going, I don't know who I'm captaining this week. And that's been like that for the last couple of weeks going in, going, I'm not sure I'm captain. Whereas it's been pretty clear most weeks this season. I think 37, Palmer against United 37, but nowhere knowing right now how strong that United team would or wouldn't be. So it's probably, if you haven't got any chips left, just whatever you fancy most in 38. And I'd arguably at this moment maybe take a punt on something like Evan Nilsson.
Uros Milicevic, should we sell Marmoush? 3 consecutive blanks, 7 blanks in the last 10. I mean, Southampton away says it all. I mean, if you did get news that he wasn't starting and let's say Haaland was back, for example, I don't own Visser. I don't want to sell Cunha and I don't want to sell Isak. So is Marmoush to Visser?
That's what I'm saying.
Interesting.
You might be buying Visser and then I might be buying Cunha.
The week after? Or
no, now. I'm in the same boat, right? If Marmoush is not in the team, I'm like, Cunha, as I said earlier, would probably be my solution.
Yeah.
And you'd be going Visser, and then we end up with nearly the same again. Obviously, I'd have Watkins going into 37 rather than you've got Isak. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if he's not in the team, yeah, but otherwise, I mean, even still, man, half hour against Southampton, you're like, I look at me this week and think, I've got Rodgers first sub. It's not terrible going into this week away to Bournemouth. I don't know. It's only if he's not playing, otherwise it stays. I'm not selling a player who's about to play
Southampton, right? Even for half an hour. I agree with you. Ricardo wants to know, if you were a betting man, where do you think KDB ends up? Saudi is my question mark.
No, I think MLS.
You think America?
More likely, yeah. I mean, these clubs there can stretch budgets for players like him, aren't there? So I think that's the most likely. But his comments recently suggested that he still thinks top level in Europe, doesn't he? So if people were prepared to work around where he's at now, then he would still be a good signing for the majority of teams. I still think it's right that Manchester City are moving in a different direction because they need such a dramatic refresh.
Change.
That I think it's right. I mean, like if he came to my team, be like, yeah, all day long, mate. We'd be captain if he came to my team. Just walk in the door as captain. He's not going to end up with my team. Villa's been mentioned quite a lot, hasn't it? Might be dependent on where they finish in the league. Would it be on reason to see a De Bruyne at Villa? I don't suppose any of us would have sat here 6 months ago and said, I'll see Rashford at Villa.
It's
So
true.
they're obviously being really ambitious. I suspect, yeah, I don't see the ones that would go from a wage perspective, be able to pay him what he wants in Europe. I don't see going there. So I think there's every chance he might end up in America.
Okay. And last question of the show, James. Unless you've got any FPL ones from Blue Sky that you want to cover off, because this is not an FPL one.
Go on in, make my day.
Damien Bruns. Forgive me if I've pronounced your surname badly. Bruins. You're in an arena, James. You have to pick 2 of these to defend you, and all the others attack you. The goal is to survive 1 hour. 50 hawks, 10 crocodiles, 3 brown bears, 15 wolves, 1 hunter with a rifle, 7 buffalo, 10,000 rats, 5 gorillas, 4 lions. I will go so far as to say, doesn't matter which 2 you pick, all the others will fuck you up. There's no 2 out of there that you could use that would be able to maybe potentially defend you.
10,000 rats.
What, to defend you?
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, the volume. I mean, you look at 50 hawks. They can't really do a lot of damage with just claws and beaks swooping down, but there's so many of them.
I think I'd take the rats.
10,000 too few. Because 5 gorillas could just, if you're stamping on them, you could stamp on so many in one go. 4 lions. I mean, the rats would run away shit scared of the lions. That 1 hunter with a rifle, it depends whether it's a semi-automatic rifle or if he has to reload after every couple of shots, you know.
I think you're right. I don't think we've got much of a chance there.
Yeah, I'm going to say, Dave, I don't think it matters. Whichever 2 you choose to defend you and the others attack, you are done for.
I'm taking the rats, though, I think.
Okay, fair play.
It's so many, isn't it? That's your best chance of keeping other stuff at bay.
Yeah. It's true. It's because I think that question has arisen because of the 100 men versus a gorilla debate, which has been ongoing for a long time.
Me and Clayton covered that on our Q&A last week on Patreon.
Was it? Yeah. And did Nico ask you in Nico's Corner? No. Was it on Patreon Q&A? Was it?
I don't think he did. Me and Clayton discussed it on the Q&A, and me and Clayton were very much, there's no 100 men who are stopping a gorilla. That was our conclusion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
10,000 rats, though, maybe.
I mean, after a gorilla's killed about 50 or 60 men, he's going to be pretty tired. If it's going to happen, trust me, at least a minimum of 60 of the men will be dead before the other 30 or 40 can get to, or 40 have got any hope of even starting. Yeah, it's not going to happen, I'm afraid. Whatever people think. Cool. There we go. There's a wrap, James, for this episode of Planet FPL. Make sure wherever you are listening to the podcast, you hit the subscribe button or follow or whatever it may be on your platform of choice. If it's on YouTube, then subscribe. Hit the notification bell. You'll get notified as soon as any additional content goes live as well. But other than that, have a great week. Keep your powder dry if you can, because there is European football between now and the weekend. Stay safe, most importantly. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Everyone, be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.